Chapter 1. Memories deserve a bookmark. Tessa Gowen had always believed that life's best moments deserved a little sparkle. Not because she was naturally glittery. She wasn't. But because her father had drilled that mantra into her head since she was old enough to hang tinsel without eating it. Memories deserve a bookmark, he'd say every December, standing in the living room like a general surveying his troops, which in this case were boxes of ornaments and two children who'd rather be watching cartoons. At 32, Tessa still heard his voice every time she strung lights around her apartment window. It was comforting, like a warm blanket of nostalgia. Her childhood had been a collage of bookmarked memories. Birthdays with confetti explosions, Easter egg hunts that looked like candy-colored battlefields, and Thanksgiving dinners where her mother's pies were practically a religion. Her mother, of course, was the calm in the chaos. If her father was the sparkle, her mother was the steady hand holding the glitter jar. "There's no problem that can't be worked out over tea and cookies," she'd say, sliding a plate of chocolate chip goodness across the kitchen table whenever life got messy. And if the cookies didn't fix it, the hard truths that followed usually did. Then there was Jackson, her older brother, her hero, her nemesis, 2 years older and annoyingly good at everything. Sports, math, charming teachers out of detention. He was the kind of brother who would tease her mercilessly for crying over a bad haircut, then show up at the salon with a wad of cash and a plan to fix it. The kind who'd punch a guy for disrespecting her, then lecture her for dating idiots. It was a good childhood. A loud, loving, slightly chaotic childhood that left Tessa with one unshakable belief. Family meant showing up. Through storms, through heartbreaks, through everything. Which was why the silence now felt so deafening. Tessa sat cross-legged on her couch, phone in hand, scrolling through old photos like they were clues in a mystery novel. There was Jackson last Christmas, smiling for the family photo, arms slung around her shoulders. There was Jackson 2 years ago at her birthday dinner, laughing so hard he nearly choked on cake. And then, nothing. Not nothing, exactly. He still answered her texts. He still picked up when she called. But the conversations were hollow, stripped of the easy banter that used to fill them. No random memes. No guess what happened today stories. Just polite replies and quick goodbyes. She tossed her phone onto the couch cushion and groaned. When did my brother become a stranger? Her cat, a judgmental tabby named Sir Pounce, blinked at her from his perch on the armrest. "Don't look at me like that," she muttered. "You don't have siblings. You wouldn't understand." Sir Pounce yawned, clearly unimpressed. The truth was, Tessa had been ignoring the problem for months, maybe longer. First, she told herself Jackson was busy. Work, life, whatever. Then she told herself it was just a phase. People drift, right? Even siblings. But deep down, she knew better. Jackson didn't drift. He anchored. He showed up. Always. Until now. She reached for her mug of tea. Cold. Because she'd been too busy spiraling to drink it, and sighed. Maybe she should just ask him. Straight up. No drama, no overthinking. "Hey, why do you hate me now?" Yeah, that would go over well. Her phone buzzed, startling her out of her thoughts. A text from her mom. "Dinner Sunday? Dad's making his famous roast." Tessa smiled despite herself. Family dinner. The one constant in her life. Maybe she could use it as an opportunity to figure out what was going on with Jackson. Casually. Subtly. Without sounding like a clingy little sister who needed validation. She typed back, "Wouldn't miss it." As she set her phone down, her gaze drifted to the stack of unopened mail on the coffee table. Bills, flyers, and a cream-colored envelope with elegant gold lettering. She tore it open and gasped. A wedding invitation. Her best friend's wedding invitation. Tessa's heart did a little cartwheel. She grabbed her phone and hit speed dial. "Why didn't you tell me?" she blurted the second her friend answered. On the other end, laughter bubbled through the line. "Because I wanted it to be a surprise. And I have another surprise. I want you to be my maid of honor." Tessa squealed so loudly Sir Pounce leapt off the couch in terror. "Are you kidding me?" "Of course." "Oh my God. I'm honored." Wait. Did you invite my family too?" "Of course," her friend said warmly. "Your family has been like a second family to me forever. I want all of you there." Tessa's smile stretched so wide it hurt. For a moment, everything felt perfect. She didn't notice the storm brewing on the horizon. Chapter 2. The new normal. Tessa Gowen had always been good at pretending things were fine. It was a survival skill honed during childhood. When Jackson would steal the last cookie and grin like a saint, she'd smile sweetly and plot revenge later. When her father's holiday sparkle turned the living room into a glitter crime scene, she'd laugh and grab a broom. But pretending things were fine with Jackson? That was a whole different game. Sunday dinner had come and gone, and the image of her brother's clenched jaw haunted her like a bad pop song stuck on repeat. She'd replayed the moment 100 times. The way he set his fork down, the deep breath, the quiet, "I can't make it," and then gone. No anger, no explanation, just gone. Her parents had been baffled. "Maybe he's busy," her mom had said, pouring gravy like it was wisdom. Her dad had shrugged and muttered something about work stress. But Tessa knew better. Busy didn't look like that. Busy didn't feel like a door slamming shut. Now, 3 days later, she sat at her desk at the marketing firm where she worked, staring at her computer screen like it had personally offended her. The email she was supposed to be writing, something about a new campaign for eco-friendly dish soap, was a blank page mocking her existence. She opened her phone instead. Me, hey, how's your week? Jackson, fine. Me, anything exciting? Jackson, not really. Me, wanna grab lunch sometime? Jackson, busy. Rain check. Tessa groaned and dropped her forehead onto the desk. Rain check my butt, she muttered. Her coworker, a perpetually cheerful guy named Nate, popped his head over the cubicle wall like a curious meerkat. Everything okay over there? You look like someone canceled Christmas. Worse, Tessa said, lifting her head. My brother canceled me. Nate blinked. Did you do something? That's the thing, she said, throwing her hands up. I don't know. He's been distant for months, and now he's acting like I asked him to donate a kidney when I invited him to a wedding. Whose wedding? My best friend's. Nate frowned thoughtfully. Maybe he hates weddings? Tessa snorted. Jackson loves weddings. Free food, open bar, chance to judge people's dance moves? That's his Olympics. Then maybe. Nate leaned in conspiratorially. He hates your best friend. Tessa froze. The thought hit her like a splash of cold water. Why would he hate her? They used to be. She stopped herself just in time. Nate's eyebrows shot up. Used to be what? Nothing, Tessa said quickly, waving him off. Long story. She spent the rest of the day pretending to work while her brain spiraled into theories. Maybe Jackson was mad about something she said. Maybe he was secretly allergic to weddings. Maybe, God forbid, he was dating someone who didn't like her. By the time she got home, she was exhausted from overthinking. Sir Pounce greeted her at the door with his usual disdain, and she scooped him up like a lifeline. Okay, buddy, she said, carrying him to the couch. We need a plan. Operation Fix Jackson. Sir Pounce blinked slowly, unimpressed. Step 1, Tessa continued, pacing the living room. Figure out what's wrong. Step 2, fix it. Step 3, make him laugh again. Easy. She flopped onto the couch and stared at the ceiling. Except I have no idea what's wrong. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mom. Don't forget to bring dessert Sunday. Dad's making roast again. Tessa smiled faintly. Another family dinner. Another chance to play detective. She didn't know it yet, but the truth was about to hit harder than any glitter bomb her father ever launched. Chapter 3. Sunday dinner and silent storms. Tessa loved Sunday dinners. They were her anchor in a world that often felt like a tornado of deadlines and adult responsibilities. No matter what happened during the week, she could count on roast beef, mashed potatoes, and her father's unsolicited commentary on the state of modern music. Tonight, though, her stomach churned like a washing machine on spin cycle. She balanced the dessert tray in one hand, a triple-layer chocolate cake that could probably solve world peace, and pushed open her parents' front door. Smells amazing, she called, stepping into the familiar warmth of home. Her mom appeared from the kitchen, apron dusted with flour, smile as bright as a sunrise. You're just in time. Your dad's carving the roast. Perfect, Tessa said, forcing cheer into her voice. I brought cake. Bless you, her mom said, taking the tray. Your brother's already here. Tessa's pulse skipped. Jackson. She kicked off her boots and walked into the dining room, rehearsing casual lines in her head. Hey, how's life? Hey, remember when you used to talk to me? Hey, why do you look like you're starring in a crime drama every time I mention a wedding? Jackson sat at the table, sleeves rolled up, forearms resting on the edge like he was bracing for impact. He looked good, annoyingly good as always, but there was a tension in his jaw that made her heart sink. Hey, she said, sliding into the chair across from him. Hey, he replied, voice even, eyes flicking up for a second before dropping back to his plate. Her dad bustled in with the roast, humming some old tune, oblivious to the emotional landmine in the room. Dinner is served. Dig in, everyone. For a few minutes, the conversation was normal. Her mom asked about work. Her dad complained about gas prices. Jackson contributed polite, clipped answers, never volunteering more than necessary. Tessa waited for the right moment. When her mom passed the gravy boat, she took a breath and dove in. So, she said lightly, I have news. Big news. 3 pairs of eyes turned toward her. My best friend is getting married, she announced, grinning like it was the happiest thing in the world. And guess what? I'm the maid of honor. Her mom gasped. Oh, that's wonderful. When's the wedding? June, Tessa said. And she invited all of you. She said you've been like a second family to her. Her dad beamed. That's sweet. We wouldn't miss it. Tessa turned to Jackson, expecting at least a smile. Instead, she saw his jaw tighten like a vice. He set his fork down with deliberate care, stared at his plate for a long, heavy moment, then looked up at her. I can't make it, he said quietly. The words landed like a punch. What? Tessa blinked. Why not? Other commitments, he said, voice flat. Jackson. He pushed back his chair, stood, and grabbed his jacket. Sorry, I've got to go. And just like that, he walked out. The silence he left behind was deafening. Her mom stared at the door, stunned. What was that about? Her dad frowned. No idea. Tessa sat frozen, heart pounding, mind spinning. She'd expected smiles. Maybe teasing. Not this. For the first time, her parents saw what she'd been talking about. And now they were curious. But Tessa wasn't curious. She was terrified. Because the look in Jackson's eyes hadn't been anger. It had been hurt. And she had no idea why. Chapter 4. Cracks in the glass. Tessa had always believed that silence was golden. Except when it came from her brother. Then it was suspicious. Like, someone's hiding a body suspicious. She sat in her car outside her parents' house, gripping the steering wheel like it owed her answers. Dinner had ended in awkward small talk after Jackson's abrupt exit. Her mom had tried to smooth things over with pie because in her world, dessert was diplomacy. Her dad had muttered something about kids these days and retreated to his recliner. But Tessa? She couldn't shake the image of Jackson's face. That look, hurt, not angry, was burned into her brain like a neon sign flashing something's wrong. By the time she got home, she was vibrating with restless energy. Sir Pounce greeted her with his usual disdain, flicking his tail like he was judging her life choices. Don't start, she told him, tossing her keys onto the counter. I'm already spiraling. She paced the living room, replaying every interaction with Jackson over the past 2 years. The slow fade, the clipped texts, the polite but hollow calls. And now this. She grabbed her phone and dialed his number before she could overthink it. It rang, and then voicemail. Hey, she said, trying to sound casual and failing spectacularly. Just wanted to check in. Call me? She hung up and groaned. Great. Now I sound needy. Sir Pounce yawned, unimpressed. The next morning, Tessa dragged herself to work, fueled by caffeine and existential dread. She plopped into her chair and stared at her inbox like it held the secrets of the universe. Nate popped up over the cubicle wall, grinning like a man who'd never known anxiety. Morning. You look intense. I'm fine, Tessa lied. You're glaring at your email like it owes you money. She sighed. It's my brother. He bailed on dinner last night after I mentioned the wedding. Nate's eyebrows shot up. The wedding again? Okay. Seriously, what's the deal? I don't know. Tessa threw her hands up. He's been distant for months. And now he's acting like I invited him to a root canal instead of a party. Maybe he's allergic to commitment, Nate said with a shrug. Or cake. Tessa gave him a look. He loves cake. He once ate an entire groom's cake at a reception and blamed it on quality control. Nate snorted. Legend. Exactly, Tessa said, leaning back in her chair. So why is he acting like this? Nate tilted his head. You said your best friend is the bride, right? Yeah. Didn't they date? Tessa froze. The question hit like a dart to the heart. They did, she admitted slowly. Years ago. But it wasn't messy. They broke up, said they grew apart. No drama. Nate raised an eyebrow. You sure about that? Tessa opened her mouth to argue. And stopped. Because the truth was, she wasn't sure. She'd never asked Jackson why they broke up. She just assumed. And suddenly, that assumption felt like a crack in the glass. By the time she left work, Tessa had a plan. A terrible, awkward, possibly friendship-ending plan. She was going to call her best friend. That night, she sat cross-legged on her couch, phone in hand, heart pounding like a drum solo. She hit dial. Her friend answered on the second ring, voice bright and bubbly. Tessa. Hey. Hey, Tessa said, forcing a smile into her tone. So, wedding stuff. Super exciting. Right? I can't wait. Me neither, Tessa said. Then, before she could chicken out, listen, I need to ask you something. About you and Jackson. There was a pause. A long, heavy pause. What about us? Her friend said carefully. Why did you break up? Tessa asked, words tumbling out in a rush. Because he's acting weird, and I feel like I missed something. Another pause. Longer this time. Then her friend laughed. A brittle, nervous sound that made Tessa's stomach drop. We just grew apart. You know how it is. Tessa's gut screamed lie. And for the first time in her life, she didn't know if she wanted the truth. Chapter 5. The truth unraveled. Tessa had always believed that silence was suspicious. But laughter? Laughter was worse. Especially brittle, nervous laughter. The kind that sounded like someone trying to patch a sinking ship with duct tape. Her best friend's voice crackled through the phone, light and airy. But Tessa could hear the strain underneath. We just grew apart, her friend repeated. Like the words were a script she'd memorized. Tessa's stomach twisted. That's it? You grew apart. Yes, her friend said quickly. Too quickly. It happens, Tess. People change. Sure, Tessa said slowly, her mind racing. But you were together for over a year. You were practically living at his place. And then poof, you were done. No warning. No explanation. Her friend sighed, the sound heavy with irritation. Why are we talking about this now? Because, Tessa said, voice tightening, he walked out of dinner last night when I mentioned your wedding. He looked hurt. Silence. Long, suffocating silence. Tessa gripped the phone harder. Did something happen? Another sigh. This one sharper. Tessa, it's ancient history. Why dig it up? Because he's my brother, Tessa snapped. And he's been avoiding me for 2 years. If something happened, I need to know. Her friend hesitated. And in that hesitation, Tessa felt the crack widen into a chasm. Finally, her friend spoke, voice low and flat. Fine. You want the truth? I cheated. The words slammed into Tessa like a freight train. You what? I cheated. Her friend repeated, tone defensive now. It wasn't serious. It was a mistake. Tessa's throat went dry. A mistake? How long? Does it matter? Yes. Tessa's voice rose, sharp and trembling. How long? Her friend's silence was answer enough. Oh my God, Tessa whispered. Months, her friend exhaled. Annoyed. Look, it's over. It was over then. I didn't tell you because… Because what? Tessa demanded. Because you were using me as your excuse? The line went dead quiet. Tessa felt her stomach drop. You did, didn't you? Every time you said you were with me. Her friend's voice cracked. Tessa, please. No, Tessa said, fury boiling up like lava. You used me to lie to my brother. You made me part of it. I didn't want to hurt you, her friend whispered. You didn't want to hurt me? Tessa laughed bitterly. You destroyed the one person who's always been there for me. And you dragged me into it without my consent. Tessa, don't, she said, voice shaking. Don't say my name like we're still friends. Because we're not. She hung up before the tears could fall. The silence in her apartment was deafening. Sir Pounce jumped onto the couch, curling up beside her like a furry therapist. Tessa stared at the wall, heart pounding, mind spinning. Her best friend, the person she trusted most, had betrayed her brother. And worse, had used her as an alibi. No wonder Jackson pulled away. No wonder he looked at her like she'd stabbed him in the back. He thought she knew. He thought she helped. And that was a level of betrayal she couldn't even begin to fathom. Tessa wiped her eyes and stood, resolve hardening like steel. She was going to fix this, somehow. Because if she didn't, she'd lose her brother forever. Chapter 6. Breaking point. Tessa had never hung up on her best friend before. Not once in 20 years of friendship. But tonight, the click of that call felt like slamming a door on a burning building. Necessary, but devastating. She sat on the couch, phone still in her hand, staring at the blank TV screen like it might offer answers. Sir Pounce stretched lazily beside her, oblivious to the implosion of her social universe. Her best friend had cheated. For months. And every time she'd whispered, I'm with Tessa, it had been a lie. A lie that made Tessa an unwitting accomplice. No wonder Jackson had pulled away. No wonder he looked at her like she'd betrayed him. In his mind, she had. The weight of it crushed her chest. She wanted to scream, cry, throw something. Instead, she stood, grabbed her keys, and marched out the door. The drive to her friend's apartment was a blur of headlights and fury. By the time she arrived, her hands were shaking so hard she nearly dropped her phone. She didn't text. She didn't knock politely. She pounded on the door like a woman possessed. Her friend opened it, eyes wide, face pale. Tessa, don't, Tessa snapped, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. Don't say my name like we're okay. We're not. Her friend swallowed hard. I didn't want to hurt you. Stop. Tessa's voice cracked like a whip. You didn't want to hurt me? You used me. You dragged me into your lies. You made me part of cheating on my brother. Her friend flinched. I thought if you knew. You thought if I knew, I'd what? Help you? Cover for you? Tessa's laugh was sharp and bitter. God, you don't even know me. Tessa, please. No. Tessa's hands curled into fists. You took the one person who's always been there for me and ripped him apart. And then you made me look like I helped. Do you have any idea what that did to him? To us? Her friend's eyes filled with tears. I made a mistake. A mistake. Tessa's voice rose, trembling with rage. A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. Cheating for months and lying about it? That's a choice. Her friend sobbed quietly, but Tessa felt nothing but cold fury. We're done, she said, voice flat. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't send me an invitation. I won't be at your wedding. Tessa! She turned and walked out, slamming the door behind her. The night air hit her like a slap, but it didn't cool the fire in her chest. She climbed into her car, gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. Her friendship was over. 20 years. Gone in a heartbeat. And yet, the ache in her chest wasn't for her friend. It was for Jackson. Because now she understood. He thought she'd been complicit. He thought she'd betrayed him. And that was a wound deeper than any breakup. She drove home in silence, headlights slicing through the dark, her mind spinning with one thought. I have to fix this. Somehow. Back in her apartment, she collapsed onto the couch, staring at the ceiling like it held the blueprint for repairing broken trust. Sir Pounce jumped onto her lap, purring softly, as if mocking her misery. Okay, she whispered, stroking his fur. Step 1, apologize. Step 2, prove I didn't know. Step 3, she swallowed hard. Make him believe in me again. Sounded simple. It wasn't. Jackson wasn't just her brother. He was her anchor, her constant, her hero. Losing him wasn't an option. She grabbed her phone and opened his contact, thumb hovering over the call button. Her heart pounded like a drum. Not yet. Not like this. She needed a plan. A gesture big enough to break through his walls. Something that said, I didn't betray you. I'd never betray you. And she was going to find it. Even if it killed her. Chapter 7. The olive branch. Tessa had never been good at grand gestures. She was more of a send a text and hope for the best kind of woman. But tonight, as she sat cross-legged on her living room floor surrounded by scraps of paper, half-empty coffee mugs, and a very judgmental cat, she knew a text wasn't going to cut it. Jackson deserved more. He deserved something that said, I didn't betray you. I'd never betray you. Something that screamed sincerity without sounding like a Hallmark card on steroids. Unfortunately, sincerity was hard to package. She stared at the notebook in front of her, where she'd scrawled a list titled Operation Fix Jackson in bold letters. Underneath were 3 bullet points. 1. Apologize. 2. Explain. 3. Make him laugh. Simple. Except for the part where Jackson hadn't answered her last 3 calls. Okay, she muttered, tapping her pen against her chin. What makes Jackson laugh? Sir Pounce blinked at her from the armrest, tail flicking like he was silently judging her brainstorming skills. Don't look at me like that, she said. You're not helping. She flipped to a fresh page and wrote, ideas to make him laugh. Underneath, she scribbled, a memes? Too impersonal. Dad jokes? He'd disown me. A show up with beer? Might work, if he doesn't slam the door in my face. She groaned and flopped back on the carpet. Why is fixing relationships harder than calculus? By midnight, she had a plan. A terrible, awkward, possibly humiliating plan, but a plan nonetheless. She was going to show up at Jackson's apartment with his favorite things. Barbecue ribs from that hole-in-the-wall place he loved, a 6-pack of craft beer, and a handwritten note that said everything she couldn't cram into a text. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't elegant. But it was honest. The next evening, Tessa stood outside Jackson's door balancing a takeout bag, a 6-pack, and a notebook that looked like it had survived a hurricane. Her heart pounded like a drum solo. She knocked. Footsteps approached. The door opened. Jackson stood there, looking tired and wary, like a man bracing for impact. His eyes flicked to the food, then to her face. Tessa, he said slowly, what are you doing here? She swallowed hard. Bringing peace offerings. She held up the bag. Ribs, and beer, and an apology. His jaw tightened. You don't need to. Yes, I do, she cut in, voice trembling. Because I didn't know. About her. About what she did to you. And if you think I helped her, God, Jackson, I swear I didn't. He stared at her, silent, unreadable. Tessa's throat burned. She told me last night. She cheated. She used me as an excuse. And I didn't know. I would never, never betray you like that. Jackson's eyes darkened, pain flickering across his face like a shadow. You didn't know? No, Tessa whispered. And if I had, I would have ended that friendship on the spot. Which I did. Last night. She's gone. Out of my life. Silence stretched between them, heavy and fragile. Finally, Jackson exhaled, shoulders sagging like a man setting down a weight he'd carried too long. I thought. His voice cracked. I thought you were covering for her. Tessa's chest ached. Never. You're my brother. You're everything. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Jackson stepped aside, opening the door wider. Come in, he said quietly. Tessa walked in, clutching the bag like a lifeline. The apartment smelled like cedar and solitude. She set the food on the counter, heart still racing. Jackson leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching her like he wasn't sure if he should laugh or cry. So, he said finally, a faint smile tugging at his lips. You brought ribs. And beer, Tessa said, holding up the 6-pack like a trophy. Because nothing says, I'm sorry, like smoked meat and alcohol. Jackson chuckled. A low, rusty sound that made her heart soar. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. Chapter 8. The heart-to-heart. Jackson's apartment was quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that made Tessa feel like she'd stepped into a confession booth instead of her brother's living room. She set the ribs and beer on the counter, her hands trembling just enough to make the bottles clink. Jackson leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching her like he wasn't sure whether to laugh or throw her out. His expression was guarded, but softer than it had been in months. That was something. A crack in the armor. Tessa took a deep breath and turned to face him. Okay, she said, voice shaky but determined. We need to talk. Jackson's brow arched. That's usually my line. She gave a weak laugh. Yeah, well, you've been avoiding me for 2 years, so I figured I'd take the initiative. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He just nodded toward the couch. Sit, Tessa sat. Jackson dropped into the armchair across from her, his posture stiff, his eyes unreadable. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence stretched, heavy and fragile. Finally, Tessa broke it. I didn't know, she said softly. About her. About what she did to you. Jackson's gaze flicked to hers, sharp and searching. You didn't. No. Her throat burned. She told me last night. She cheated. For months. And she used me as her excuse. Every time she said she was with me. God, Jackson. I swear I didn't know. His expression shifted. Pain flickering across his face like a shadow. I thought. His voice cracked. I thought you were covering for her. Tessa's chest ached. Never. You're my brother. You're everything. Jackson leaned forward. Elbows on his knees. Hands clasped tight. Do you know what that felt like? Thinking my sister, the one person I trusted most, was helping her lie to me. Tessa swallowed hard. I can imagine. And I hate that you even thought that. I hate that I didn't ask questions when you two broke up. I just assumed it was mutual. He gave a bitter laugh. Mutual? She was sleeping with someone else while telling me she was at movie night with you. Tessa winced. I'm so sorry. Jackson shook his head, staring at the floor. I didn't want to ask. Because if you had been helping her, I don't know what I would have done. I couldn't lose you too. Tessa blinked back tears. You didn't lose me. You never could. He looked up then, and the raw vulnerability in his eyes nearly broke her. I felt like I did. Tessa slid off the couch and knelt in front of him, grabbing his hands. You didn't, and you never will. I ended the friendship. She's gone. Out of my life. Because you matter more than anyone. Jackson stared at her for a long moment, then exhaled slowly, like a man setting down a weight he'd carried too long. I believe you. Relief flooded her chest so fast it made her dizzy. Good, she whispered, squeezing his hands. Because I was about to start bribing you with ribs and beer until you did. Jackson chuckled. A low, rusty sound that made her heart soar. You didn't have to bribe me, but I'll take the ribs. Tessa grinned through her tears. And the beer. Obviously. They moved to the kitchen, unpacking the food in companionable silence. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't like before. But it was a start. A fragile, hopeful start. As Jackson cracked open a bottle and handed it to her, he smirked. You know, you're lucky I didn't block your number. Tessa snorted. Please. You'd miss me too much. He raised a brow. Debatable. She grinned, clinking her bottle against his. To second chances. Jackson's smile softened. To family. Chapter 9. Wedding woes. Tessa had never dreaded a phone call more in her life. Not even the time she accidentally butt-dialed her boss while singing Taylor Swift at full volume. This was worse. This was nuclear-level awkward. She stared at her phone, thumb hovering over the call button, rehearsing the speech in her head. Hi, so. I can't be your maid of honor because you detonated my family with your lies. Best wishes. Yeah. That would go over well. Sir Pounce sat on the armrest, tail flicking like a metronome of judgment. Don't look at me like that, Tessa muttered. You'd bail too if your best friend turned out to be a soap opera villain. She took a deep breath and hit dial. Her friend answered on the second ring, voice bright and bubbly, like nothing had happened. Tessa. Hey. I was just about to text you about dress fittings. Stop, Tessa said, sharper than she intended. We need to talk. The cheer in her friend's voice faltered. Okay. I'm not coming to the wedding, Tessa said, words tumbling out like marbles on a tile floor. And I'm not your maid of honor. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. What? Her friend whispered. Why? Tessa laughed bitterly. Why? Because you cheated on my brother for months and used me as your cover story. Because you broke his heart and made me look like an accomplice. Because you lied to both of us. Her friend's voice cracked. Tessa, please. No, Tessa said, voice trembling with fury. You don't get to please me. You don't get to ask for favors after detonating my family. We're done. Tessa. She hung up before the tears could fall. The silence in her apartment was deafening. For a moment, she just sat there, staring at the wall, heart pounding like a drum. Then she grabbed her keys and drove to her parents' house. Her mom opened the door, apron dusted with flour, eyes widening at the sight of Tessa's stormy expression. Sweetheart? What's wrong? Tessa stepped inside, words spilling out like water from a broken dam. She cheated on Jackson. For months. And she used me as her excuse. Her mom gasped, hand flying to her mouth. Oh my God. Her dad appeared from the living room, eyebrows knitting. What? She lied to both of us, Tessa said, voice cracking. And Jackson thought I helped her. Her mom's face hardened in a way Tessa had never seen before. She's not welcome here. Ever. Her dad nodded grimly. Agreed. Tessa swallowed hard. I told her I'm not going to the wedding. I'm done. Her mom pulled her into a hug, warm and fierce. You did the right thing. Tessa clung to her, tears spilling down her cheeks. I just want Jackson to know I'd never betray him. Her dad's voice was steady, resolute. Then show him. Actions speak louder than words. Later that night, Jackson showed up. Tessa hadn't expected him. Hadn't even texted. But there he was, standing in the doorway like a man who'd finally decided to stop running. You told her, he said quietly. Tessa nodded, throat tight. I told her everything. And I told her I'm not going. Jackson's jaw worked, like he was trying to find words that didn't exist. Finally, he said, thank you. Tessa blinked back tears. You don't have to thank me. You're my brother. He stepped forward and pulled her into a hug, tight, fierce, the kind that said everything words couldn't. For the first time in 2 years, Tessa felt like she had her brother back. The family spent the rest of the evening in the kitchen, eating leftover roast and laughing about nothing in particular. Her dad cracked jokes about starting a no-drama club. Her mom kept refilling everyone's plates like food could heal wounds. And maybe it could. Because as Tessa sat between her parents and Jackson, listening to his laugh, the real one, not the polite version, she realized something. Family wasn't just about showing up during the storms. It was about rebuilding after the wreckage. And tonight, they were rebuilding. Chapter 10. Love in the Unexpected. Tessa had never considered herself the type to fall for someone during a family crisis. Romance was supposed to happen in candlelit restaurants or at least during a vacation, not in the fluorescent glow of a grocery store aisle while buying barbecue sauce for her brother. But life apparently had a sense of humor. It started 2 days after the family dinner. Jackson had texted her. Actual words, not just fine or busy, asking if she wanted to come over for a game night. It was his way of saying we're okay now, and Tessa had practically done a victory dance in her kitchen. She decided to bring snacks, because nothing said, I love you, bro, like chips and salsa, which was how she ended up in aisle 7, staring at a wall of tortilla chips like they held the secrets of the universe. Overwhelmed? A voice said behind her. Tessa turned and nearly forgot how to breathe. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a faded baseball cap and a smile that could melt glaciers. His cart was half full of craft beer and frozen pizza, which felt like a personal attack on her self-control. Tessa said brilliantly. Yeah, too many options. He grinned, easy and warm. Go with the lime-flavored ones. Trust me. She raised an eyebrow. You sound very confident. I take my snacks seriously, he said, reaching for a bag and handing it to her like it was a peace treaty. I'm Drew, by the way. Tessa, she said, accepting the chips. Her fingers brushed his, and a spark shot up her arm like static electricity on steroids. Drew's smile widened. Nice to meet you, Tessa. Big plans for these chips. Game night, she said. With my brother. Ah, he said, mock serious. The ultimate test of snack quality. She laughed, and for the first time in days it felt easy. Like the weight she'd been carrying had lifted just enough to let her breathe. They chatted for a few minutes about chips, beer, and the eternal debate over guacamole versus queso before parting ways. But as Tessa walked to the checkout, she couldn't stop smiling. And when her phone buzzed with a text from Drew, hope the chips passed the test. Drink sometime. She felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. That night, game night was a success. Jackson laughed. Really laughed. When she beat him at trivia, and even teased her about her snack diplomacy. It felt like old times. Like the cracks in their bond were finally sealing. But as Tessa drove home, her thoughts kept drifting back to Drew. His smile. His easy confidence. The way he'd made her laugh in the middle of a grocery store meltdown. Maybe life didn't wait for perfect timing. Maybe love showed up in aisle 7 when you least expected it. And maybe, just maybe, Tessa was ready for a new chapter. Chapter 11. The big day, without her. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and beautiful. The kind of day that begged for champagne toasts and Instagram-worthy vows. Tessa stared at the sunlight streaming through her window and felt nothing. No guilt. No second thoughts. Just relief. She wasn't going. She'd made her choice, and for the first time in weeks, it felt like the right one. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mom. Family brunch at noon. Dad's making pancakes. Jackson's bringing something special. Tessa smiled. Family brunch sounded infinitely better than sitting through a ceremony where the bride had detonated her life like a soap opera grenade. She threw on jeans and a soft sweater, grabbed her keys and headed out. Her parents' house smelled like heaven, warm syrup, sizzling bacon, and the faint aroma of coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Her dad stood at the stove flipping pancakes like a man auditioning for a cooking show, while her mom arranged fruit on a platter with surgical precision. Jackson was already there, leaning against the counter with a grin that looked suspiciously smug. What's the special thing you brought? Tessa asked, hanging her coat. Jackson held up a bottle of champagne. Mimosas. Because if we're skipping drama, we're doing it in style. Tessa laughed, the sound bubbling up like champagne itself. You're ridiculous. Ridiculously awesome, Jackson said, popping the cork with a flourish that made their dad mutter something about sticky ceilings. They gathered around the table, plates piled high, laughter flowing as easily as the mimosas. For the first time in months, maybe years, Tessa felt whole. No cracks, no shadows, just family. Her dad raised his glass halfway through the meal. To loyalty, he said solemnly, and to the official founding of the No Drama Club. Jackson snorted. Do we get jackets? Absolutely, her dad said. With glitter. Memories deserve sparkle. Tessa groaned. Please, no glitter jackets. Her mom smiled. You'll wear it and you'll like it. Halfway through brunch, Tessa's phone buzzed. A text from Drew. Survived the chip test? Want to celebrate with coffee later? Her heart did a little flip. She typed back, chip test passed. Coffee sounds perfect. Jackson noticed her smile and raised an eyebrow. Who's that? No one, Tessa said too quickly. Jackson smirked. No one has you grinning like you just won the lottery? Eat your pancakes, Tessa shot back, cheeks flaming. Later, as she drove to meet Drew, Tessa felt a strange mix of emotions. Hope, excitement, and a quiet sense of peace. She'd lost a friend, but she'd regained her brother. She'd chosen loyalty over appearances. And maybe, just maybe, she was about to start something new. Life didn't wait for perfect timing. It showed up in aisle 7 with lime-flavored chips and a smile that melted glaciers. And Tessa? She was ready. Chapter 12. Bookmarks and New Chapters. Tessa had always believed her father's mantra. Memories deserve a bookmark. But tonight, as she curled up on her couch with a steaming mug of tea and her phone buzzing with a new message, she realized something. Bookmarks weren't just for memories. They were for beginnings too. The message was from Drew. Had a great time today. Next round's on me. Dinner? Tessa grinned, typing back, deal. But only if you promise no lime chip lectures. His reply came seconds later. No promises. She laughed out loud, the sound echoing through her apartment like sunlight breaking through clouds. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, she felt light, hopeful, like the storm had passed and the sky was finally clear. Later that evening, she drove to her parents' house for another family dinner, because apparently, they were making up for lost time with food. The kitchen was alive with chatter and the smell of roasted chicken. Her mom was fussing over the gravy. Her dad was humming some old tune, and Jackson was smiling. Not the polite, distant smile she'd grown used to, the real one. The one that crinkled the corners of his eyes and made her heart ache with relief. Hey, he said as she walked in, holding up a glass of wine. You're late. Traffic, she said, rolling her eyes. And maybe a quick stop for coffee. Jackson's brow arched. Coffee with who? Tessa smirked. None of your business. He grinned. And for the first time in 2 years, it felt like old times. The teasing, the warmth, the unspoken bond that had always been the backbone of her life. Dinner was loud and messy and perfect. Her dad proposed a toast to family and zero glitter jackets, which earned him a glare from her mom and a laugh from everyone else. Jackson clinked his glass against hers, eyes soft. I'm proud of you, he said quietly, so only she could hear. Tessa blinked. For what? For choosing loyalty, he said. For standing up for us. Her throat tightened. You're my brother. There was never a choice. Jackson smiled, and in that moment, Tessa knew the cracks were gone. The bond was whole again, stronger. Maybe because they'd fought to rebuild it. Later, as she drove home, her phone buzzed with another text from Drew. Dinner Friday. No excuses. Tessa smiled, fingers flying over the screen. Fine, but I'm picking dessert. His reply was instant. Deal. As long as it's not lime-flavored. She laughed, shaking her head. Life didn't wait for perfect timing. It showed up in aisle 7 with lime chips and a smile that melted glaciers. And Tessa? She was ready. Ready for new chapters. Ready for bookmarks that glittered. Not because her dad said so, but because they marked moments worth remembering. Chapter 13. Epilogue. Bookmarks and glitter. The living room looked like a craft store had exploded. Glitter everywhere. Ribbons draped across chairs. A banner reading Family Day. No Drama Club annual meeting hung crookedly above the fireplace. Tessa stood in the doorway, laughing so hard she nearly dropped the tray of cookies. Dad, what is this? Her father turned, grinning like a man who just invented joy. Our first official No Drama Club meeting. Membership jackets are in the works. Tessa groaned. Please tell me they're not glitter. They're glitter, her mom said, breezing past with a tray of tea. Memories deserve sparkle. Jackson smirked from the couch, holding up a jacket that looked like a disco ball had been turned into outerwear. You're wearing this. Over my dead body, Tessa said, setting down the cookies. Don't tempt me, Jackson teased, eyes crinkling with laughter. The real kind, the kind she'd missed for so long. The family gathered around the coffee table, sipping tea and laughing about everything and nothing. It felt like old times, but better, stronger, because they'd weathered the storm and come out whole. Tessa's phone buzzed. A text from Drew. Running late. Save me a cookie. She smiled, typing back. Only if you promise not to judge my glitter jacket. His reply came seconds later. I'll wear one too. Matching jackets. Deal? Tessa laughed, shaking her head. Life had a funny way of surprising her. A few months ago, she'd been drowning in silence and heartbreak. Now, she had her brother back, her family closer than ever, and a man who made her laugh in grocery store aisles. Later, as Drew walked in, smiling, easy, carrying a bottle of wine, her dad handed him a glitter jacket without missing a beat. Drew slipped it on like a champ, earning a cheer from the room. Welcome to the club, Jackson said, clinking his glass against Drew's. No drama allowed. Drew grinned. I'll do my best. Tessa rolled her eyes, laughing as she sank into the couch beside him. Her heart felt full, overflowing, even, because this was it. This was what mattered. Family, love, loyalty, and maybe a little sparkle. Her father raised his glass one last time. To bookmarks, he said. Because memories deserve them. Tessa smiled, lifting her glass high. And to new chapters.